Okay, on today's Business Matters, there could be a major opportunity in the trade war between the U.S. and China. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent explained that the U.S. could make a deal with China. That's only if China is willing to adjust its economy towards more consumption with less reliance on manufacturing exports. Bessent went on to say that the U.S. is looking to shift toward more manufacturing and less consumption. He said there is an opportunity here for the U.S. and China to rebalance together. An accused rent hike conspiracy is going to court. New Jersey is suing RealPage and 10 of the state's largest landlords for violating antitrust and consumer fraud laws. They're accused of using the company's software and algorithm to inflate rents for apartments and multifamily properties. The state claims this led to rent being inflated for hundreds of thousands of residents. RealPage did not immediately respond to requests for comment. And pack your passports. The Commerce Department says U.S. citizens taking off abroad increased in March from last year, and it's up more than 20% from 2019. On the other hand, foreign visitors to the U.S. dropped by nearly 10% in March. The trend is playing out in airline numbers too. United and Delta both reported international passengers from Europe and Canada are down year over year, while domestic travel has weakened. The airlines are actually planning to cut back flights within the U.S. later this year. From the back seat to the driver's seat, Tesla's little-known energy division is taking the wheel for the company after the automotive division's disappointing first-quarter earnings. Here's more.
No longer just a passenger, Tesla Energy is becoming a bright spot for the company. Tesla acquired a solar panel company in 2016, which became its energy division. The unit specializes in generating and storing energy. This includes Tesla's Megapack and Powerwall battery systems. While Tesla reported its automotive revenue dropped 20% in the first quarter, Tesla Energy brought in nearly $3 billion during that same time. That's up almost 70% from last year. The energy unit also shared that it had the second-best quarter to date in terms of energy capacity deployed. But there are some speed bumps ahead from the trade war between the U.S. and China. The company makes its Megapacks and Powerwalls in the U.S., but battery cell components are imported from China, which is the leader in global battery manufacturing. Tesla's CFO warned that tariffs on the energy division would actually be more severe than on its auto division.
United Steelworkers sticking to their stance, and that is no welding U.S. steel with Nippon Steel. In a letter to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the union said it remains unalterably opposed to the $15 billion merger. The group noted it's against Japan's Nippon Steel buying U.S. steel or any deal that would give Nippon influence over the company. USW President David McCall told Bessent the union's deep national security and economic concerns have not been answered during any mitigations. While in office, President Biden blocked the deal. While President Trump took office for his second term, he said he wouldn't mind if Nippon Steel has a minority stake. But Trump has repeatedly said he does not think a foreign company should control U.S. steel. And things seem to be looking up for Boeing after a rough 2024. The aircraft builder's first quarter results were not as bad as expected. Take a look.
Boeing showed some signs of recovery after a brutal 2024 on Wednesday. The planemaker giant reported a smaller than expected quarterly loss after it produced and delivered more jets. Boeing reported an adjusted loss of 49 cents per share during the first quarter. That compared with analysts' average expectations of $1.29. Its revenue also rose 18% to $19.5 billion in the quarter through March, slightly above expectations. The company further said 737 production gradually increased during the period. Boeing wants to boost output of its strong-selling 737 MAX jets to 38 a month this year. Production fell last year due to a series of crises and a strike by about 30,000 US West Coast factory workers. But the plane maker faces pressures from supply chain issues that have delayed production and hurt its ability to cater to a booming aerospace market. It reported an $11.8 billion loss last year due to problems at its major units. Boeing is also dealing with the fallout of a US-China trade war that led to the return of two of its planes due for a Chinese carrier. The company is working on a recovery path under new CEO Kelly Ortberg. Boeing announced the sale of portions of its digital aviation solutions business on Tuesday for just over $10 billion. It's part of Ortberg's plan to reduce debt by selling off non-core assets. He referred to 2025 as Boeing's turnaround year in a letter to employees Wednesday.
And staying with Boeing, not only were two Boeing planes for Chinese carriers returned, its CEO Kelly Ortberg says China has in fact stopped accepting its aircraft deliveries altogether. Ortberg noted that this is due to the escalating trade war between the world's two largest economies. He told CNBC that there were actually a few 737 MAX planes in China already that were set to be delivered but have returned back to the U.S. Ortberg doesn't plan to hold the planes until Chinese carriers change their mind. He said that there are plenty of customers out there looking for the MAX aircraft. He intends for some of the planes that were made or are in the making for Chinese clients will go to others now. The European Commission fines U.S. tech giants Apple and Meta nearly $800 million combined for antitrust breaches. These are the first sanctions under landmark legislation aimed at curbing the power of big tech in Europe. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us.
The European Commission fined Apple $570 million and Meta nearly $230 million. It comes after a ruling that both companies had restricted customer choices and violated the European Union's Digital Markets Act. Member of European Parliament Andreas Schwab said European law is becoming very costly for companies that don't obey it.
The message is very clear. Competition matters. Open societies need open markets. That's an important message for Europe, but also for the US. And we hope to endeavor with these decisions to get more services for our citizens.
The Digital Markets Act, or DMA, seeks to ensure that large gatekeeper platforms operate in a fair way and allow room for competitors. The European Commission found Apple imposed restrictions on developers, which meant they could not take full benefit of distribution channels other than Apple's App Store. As for Meta, the EU's fines relate to the company's consent or pay advertising model. EU users of Instagram and Facebook had to choose between consent for Meta to use their private data for advertising or pay a monthly subscription for an ad-free service. Under the DMA, gatekeeper platforms must provide a less personalized but equivalent alternative to users who do not consent to the usage of their personal data. A Meta spokesperson told the Epoch Times that the European Commission is attempting to handicap successful American businesses while allowing Chinese and European companies to operate under different standards. In a statement to Reuters, Apple said it would challenge the EU fine and called it another example of being unfairly targeted in decisions that are bad for the privacy and security of users. The fines come amid trade tensions between the United States and the EU, notably the tariffs. The Trump administration is expected to scrutinize the DMA and could respond with tariff-like action.
These measures have nothing to do with trade policy. It's European law, and European law has to be enforced.
The companies are required to comply with the Commission's decisions within 60 days. Failing to do so could lead to their being charged with periodic penalty payments. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
So as you're watching this, perhaps on YouTube, I might add, did you know 20 years ago today, the very first YouTube video was uploaded? It's called Me at the Zoo, and it was a 19-second clip featuring YouTube co-founder Javed Karim in front of an elephant exhibit. He was just 25 years old at the time, and Karim was one of the company's 3 founders, all of whom previously worked at PayPal. YouTube was a very fast success. As you know, just 18 months later, it would be sold to Google for $1.65 billion worth of stock. And all of that happened when you still had to watch YouTube on a computer screen because the iPhone was still several months away from launching, and Google doesn't share how many videos are actually on YouTube, but estimates range from about 3 or 4 billion to up to 14 billion videos. Meanwhile, European drug companies want to be able to charge more for the drugs in the European Union. They say it would encourage investment and allow companies to keep pace with the US. Here's more.
The EU should allow drug prices to rise to US levels to attract investment. That was the message from the bosses of 2 European pharmaceutical giants Wednesday. Novartis CEO Vas Narasimhan and Sanofi leader Paul Hudson wrote in Britain's Financial Times that European price controls and austerity measures reduce the attractiveness of its markets. They further said competitiveness in European biopharma is waning and the uncertainty of tariffs is hurting incentives to invest in the EU. They believe the bloc should set higher list prices and called for communication on spending targets for new medicines to reward innovation. They also want the EU to strengthen its domestic market and warned its pharma model of producing in Europe and exporting to the US can't continue. Over the past weeks, drug makers have pledged to invest in the US to deal with tariffs. Washington says the aim is to boost domestic manufacturing. Roche said on Tuesday it would invest $50 billion in the US over the next 5 years. Novartis, Eli Lilly and Johnson & Johnson also announced sizable investments recently. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has warned drug makers it's considering linking US medicine prices to lower amounts paid by other developed countries. The US pays the most for drugs in the world, often nearly 3 times that of other developed nations.
President Trump is speaking out about interest rates. The president said yesterday he has no plans to fire Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, even though he would like rates to come down.
No, I have no intention of firing him. I would like to see him be a little more active in terms of his idea to lower interest rates. This is a perfect time to lower interest rates. If he doesn't, is it the end? No, it's not. But it would be good timing. It could have taken place earlier.
The president's remarks marked a notable shift in tone after days of criticism. Just one day earlier, Trump called Powell Mr. Too Late in a social media post. Trump accused Powell of potentially slowing down the U.S. economy by keeping rates too high. That post preceded a market sell-off, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping nearly 1,000 points before gaining it all back yesterday. Wall Street jumped at the open this morning, and they also reacted positively to Trump saying tariffs on Chinese imports may go down. Dow Jones rose more than 600 points, or 1.6%, while S&P gained 2%. While some chains are closing locations, Trader Joe's is continuing to expand. The grocery store chain based in California said it will open another 21 stores soon. And that's on top of the 2 it's already opened this year. Those 2 are in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and Seattle, Washington. Trader Joe's currently has 581 stores across 42 states and Washington, D.C. The 21 new stores will span 13 states and D.C. Rare earth minerals have been in the news a lot recently, and more recently with China's ban on exports of some rare earths to the U.S. NTD Sean Marshall has more on how these minerals are used in everyday life, in industry, and in the defense sector.
China leads the world in the production and processing of rare earth minerals. One estimate says that close to 90% of the world's rare earth elements are processed in China. How concerned should we be about China's grip on these critical minerals and their recent ban on some rare earth exports to U.S. companies? Just about everything you can switch on and off most likely contains rare earths, a set of 17 nearly indistinguishable, lustrous, silvery white, soft heavy metals. They're crucial to the manufacture of many high-tech products.
You know, we're doing some work with a couple energy companies, a couple lithium technology companies, right? And so if anything, it makes those companies more viable, more important, more real.
Dutch Mendenhall is a renowned real estate educator and the CEO and founder of RAD Companies. He's been observing how China's controls on these critical minerals are affecting American citizens and industries. And he says it could be a while before most people notice any impact.
I mean, I think it just happened so quickly that I don't know that individual people are going to feel this pain, right? You're not going to feel this effect today. You might feel it, somewhat in the stock market. You might feel it 3, 6 months, a year from now in product prices and product inflation, right? But the thing is, the world is big, right? And China is a big country with a lot of resources. But the other 80% of the world that isn't China is really big and has a lot of resources as well. So you're going to see new mining throughout the world, which is going to innovate business, right? You're going to see new trade agreements with new countries. And so all of these things are going to be important, and you're going to see where one thing dies, another thing grows and lives, right? That's the economy. That's supply and demand, and the demand is there.
Rare earth minerals are in computers, TVs, EV car batteries, and one of the most popular items, smartphones. Rare earths assist in the vibration function. They're in the speakers and in the screen. And as far as military application, they're used in tanks, battleships, and fighter jets.
If you don't think Trump's team in the Pentagon and they did their research and they did their homework, right? If you don't think they already pre-planned for rare minerals and for these things to be in scarcity, right? For these things to be done, like they did. And they already know the places they're going to go get minerals from. They already know the places they're going to continue to do. He's not going to put our defense contractors, he's not going to put our nation at risk because of a trade embargo, right? So he's prepared for this, and he knows where he's going to go get these resources and minerals from.
The Korea Economic Daily reports that China is even asking South Korean companies not to ship products containing China's rare earth minerals to U.S. defense firms. South Korea's industry ministry says it's seeking confirmation of the report. And Reuters says China's Ministry of Commerce didn't respond to the questions. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Okay, Wall Street rose today, and this comes as optimism grew that U.S.-China trade tensions might ease a bit, and President Trump reassured markets that he's not going to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Early gains followed comments from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calling for high tariffs unsustainable and Trump signaling openness to reducing them. So Trump's pledge to respect Fed independence calmed investors rattled by his prior comments. Tesla shares surged after Elon Musk said he would step back from the Trump administration work despite a 71% profit drop. Boeing beat loss expectations as well, while General Dynamics saw mixed results. And that's it on today's Business Matters.